As a result of the presidential funeral and National Day of Mourning, we're seeing a very unusual week develop in the options market. In the equity markets overall, the options market specifically, because the option market always has extra considerations to worry about in terms of time. Equities are not as concerned with time, particularly if you're a long-term holder. If you're trading options, remember, time is one of the basic pricing variables that goes into option models. And particularly in a world of weekly options, if you eliminate a day of time, that's meaningful. So, at the risk of being morbid, we're taping this on Tuesday afternoon. Tomorrow, Wednesday, U.S. equity markets are closed. So what that meant was, when this was announced over the weekend, so for Monday morning, you had people adjusting their models by basically eliminating a day of trading. And that if you were long volatility, there was a cost to that. If you were short volatility, that benefited you, again, because you removed a day of time. And when you're talking about very short-term options, each day has a fairly significant weight in the pricing model. What it also has done is, by the government being closed, it's pushed back economic releases. There was already a very busy calendar of economic releases this week, and essentially everything that was supposed to be released on Wednesday is being released on Thursday. So the number, I don't have the time or the inclination to elucidate all of them, but Thursday morning, after a day off, when the rest of the world will be trading normally, you're going to come in and see a huge range of economic numbers coming out. Durable goods, it's a very long list. It's probably about 12 or 15 and numbers coming out, and you should be cognizant of that, because any one of them can move the market. And if there's some convergence on the numbers, let's say they don't start to offset each other by one being better, one being worse, et cetera, that can really lead to some movement. Thursday morning rather, after 8:30 New York time, when most of the numbers are released. And we're not out of the woods on Thursday, because Friday morning is the monthly employment numbers, and particularly the week with them being released just shortly before a Fed meeting, people are going to be looking for clues as to how whether the employment numbers will be influencing the Fed's decision making. There's a broad consensus, though not unanimous anymore, that the Fed will raise 25 basis points at their next meeting later this month. A change in any of these myriad of economic statistics could change the Fed's mind in that regard. The broad consensus is that with the president having sort of jawboned the Fed is unlikely to back down and look like they're caving into presidential pressure. But when I checked the probabilities earlier today, it was about 85% that there would be 25 basis point hike. The interesting thing going forward will be the guidance that comes out of the Fed meeting, and we'll talk more about that when the time comes. But as of now, we're looking at maybe one rise through the year 2019. That's way off some of the worst projections which we'd seen earlier, which was 3. And so a lot remains to be seen. There's a lot going on. It's hard to extrapolate what the Fed's going to do from one set of numbers, but just be aware that you're going to have this trading lull, and then in the remaining 2 trading days of the week, you're going to have a lot of economic news compressed into a very short time. What that means is really be careful of your hedges here, and be careful of your exposure, because you can really run the risk of you don't want to be too long volatility because you're going to lose a day, but you also don't want to be too short because of the economic numbers. So I'm preaching caution a little bit, just because there are so many things. It's not an unprecedented situation to close for a presidential funeral, but we haven't done it in over a decade. So you're looking at a very unusual week, and when unusual circumstances come, discretion is usually the better part of valor.